Hello, rising fourth grade students. In this lesson, we will be focusing on place value. This lesson will be related to standard SOL 3.1, where you read, write, and identify the place and value of each digit in a 6-digit whole number with and without models. This mini lesson focus will be focused on identifying patterns in place value, representing numbers using different combinations of base 10 blocks, and using a variety of representations to show a given number, whether that's standard form, word form, and expanded form. So boys and girls, if you don't already have some pencil and paper, please pause the video and go get some now. All right, let's review our base 10 system. In third grade, you worked with up to 6-digit numbers. Let's see how much you remember. Before I take off these little binders here, see if you can tell me what I'm going to be taking off. If you need to pause this video, go ahead and do so now. Here we have ones, and this will be tens. This is hundreds. This is the 1,000s place. This is the 10,000s place, and this is the 100,000s place. Do you see a pattern? You might have noticed that you see the ones, the tens, and the hundreds repeated in both the units house and also the thousands house. When you get in fourth grade, you'll be going into the millions, and you will probably notice that there is a 1 millions place, a 10 millions place, and a 100 millions place. All right, so right here we have the number 10. So in the number 10, we have 1 in the tens place and a 0 as a placeholder in the ones place. Now in third grade and other grades, you probably use place value blocks. Think of a way that you could represent the number 10 with place value blocks. And if possible, stretch yourself. There are 2 ways that you could show the number 10 with base 10 blocks. Draw them with pictures or imagine what those might be now. If you thought of using a tens rod or 10 ones units, you are correct. All right, what about 100? Can you think of 3 different ways you can represent 100 with base 10 blocks? Go ahead and jot some down now or think of them in your head. There are a multitude of ways. Did you think of 100 ones units or 10 tens rods or 100s flat? Those are just 3, but not the only ways that you could represent 100 using base 10 blocks. What about 1,000? What are some different ways you could use base 10 blocks to represent 1,000? Did you think of using a thousands cube? What about 10 hundreds flats? You could even use 100 tens rods or 1,000 ones units. All right, speaking of patterns, besides the ones, tens, and hundreds pattern that you see in the different houses, there's another pattern you may have noticed. When you take one ones unit, how many times would you need to have that unit to have the same value as one tens rod? What would you need to multiply by? If you said 10, you are correct. So going from the ones house to the tens house, I would need to multiply by 10 in order to get one tens rod. What would I need to go to the hundreds place? How many tens rods would I need in order to have 100s flat? If you said 10, you're correct. 10 again. What about to go from 100 flat to 1,000s cube? How many times would I need to multiply or have of a hundreds flat to have 1,000s cube? If you said 10, you're correct. Do you notice a pattern? That is why we call it a base 10 system. All right, so in third grade, we dealt with 6-digit numbers, which are really large numbers, and you may have had to write these numbers, you may have had to identify these numbers and match them up to their standard form or even their expanded form. So here's a chunking strategy your teachers may have taught you, or if you've not, this might be helpful for reading large numbers. So to use this chunking strategy, you simply look at the first 3 digits in a 6-digit number. You're looking at the thousands house. All right, so I'm just looking at the numbers before the comma and saying them and just focusing on those 3 numbers. So 745. Easy enough. Then I notice the comma, and when I write this number, I'm going to be sure to write the word thousand and put the comma behind it. Lastly, I'm going to focus on my units house, and I'm going to say the last 3 digits. And there I see the number 23. Now, a very common misconception or mistake is that sometimes when students are writing or trying to find this number, they will mistakenly leave this number out. That number is essential. If you have thousands, you most definitely have a hundreds, tens, and ones place. So we need to remember the 0 is important as a placeholder. So if you have 23, you also need to represent that you don't have any hundreds by putting a 0 in the hundreds place. Try this one on your own. That's right, 802 would be the first numbers that we would say. Then 1,000, followed by a comma. Then lastly, the units house, 350. Again, we have that 0 as a placeholder. Even though we don't have any ones, we do need to hold that place with a 0. All right, let's look at this number. Here we see the number 23 written in standard form. That's the normal way we would write the number. And we see it represented in base 10 blocks using 2 tens rods and 3 ones units. Write down how you think we would write that in expanded form and word form. Press the pause button if necessary. Did you write 20 plus 3? If you did, you're correct. How about this? 23 in word form. You're not expected to spell those words perfectly, but just getting the gist of what you need to write down is important. So for 23 in expanded form, you write the value of that 2, which would be 20, and then you write the value of that 3, which would be simply plus 3. Can you think of another way you could represent 23? If you need to pause the video, go ahead. See if you can think of 2 other ways that you could represent the number 23 using base 10 blocks, in addition to the one that I showed you with 2 tens rods and 3 ones units. Did you use 1 tens rod and 13 ones units? What about 23 ones units? Those are some other ways you could have represented the number 23. All right. Here I've shown you some base 10 blocks. How would you write that in standard form? Standard form is what's covered on the place value chart. See if you can write that in standard form, expanded form, and word form. Press the pause button if necessary. Did you write the number 1,304? Remember not to use the word and unless we're talking about money. Here we're not using a decimal point, so notice that I did not use the word and. Did you write 1,000 plus 300 plus 4 in expanded form? I simply wrote 1. The value of the 1 is 1,000. The value of the 3 is 300. I don't have any tens. Some people do write plus 0. And that's okay if you did. And then the value of the 4 is simply 4. That's how we write it in expanded form. The word form, notice you could use a chunking strategy. I use 1,000. I wrote the word thousand and wrote the comma, and then 304. Can you think of another way you could use base 10 blocks to represent 1,304 besides using just 1,000's cube and 3 flats and 4 ones units? What are some other ways you could represent that? You could use a 1,000's cube, 200's flats, 10 rods, and 4 ones units. You could also use 1,000's cube, 1 flat, and you could break apart 2 of the hundreds flats with 20 tens rods and 4 ones units. And there are other ways. So let's summarize what we've done in this mini lesson. We identified the pattern of our base 10 system, ones, tens, and hundreds repeated within each house. We looked at how there was an exponential growth by 10, by multiplying by 10 each time we went to the left of our ones place. We also looked at how we could write 6-digit numbers and can represent them with base 10 blocks. We practiced a chunking strategy for identifying the word form of large numbers. So boys and girls, in your practice, you are going to be doing more of those kinds of exercises. You are going to be representing numbers in several ways with base 10 blocks. You are going to be using the 0 through 9 digits to represent numbers in word form, expanded form, and standard form. And if you need more of a challenge, be sure to check out the Level Up Challenge. Have a great day.